Good afternoon. Today we are going to be reading through Chapter 16 of Dracula by Bram Stoker. But we're not just going to be reading the words. We're going to be stopping and talking about interesting vocabulary words as we go, or interesting phrases. So if you are an advanced learner of English, this is a great way to improve your vocabulary or get a deeper understanding of certain words or phrases. And we're doing this video live, so if you're watching this with me, you can ask questions while we're going. What does this mean? What does that mean? I encourage you to do that. I want you to do that. If you don't do that, I will just stop sometimes and talk about words which I think could be useful for you or interesting for you in your daily life. Also, recently we have been, when we're finished with the chapter, I've been bringing some people in from Discord. We keep the video going on YouTube, and I've been bringing some people in on Discord, and we've been doing pronunciation practice. We've been picking 3 or 4 vocabulary words that we talked about during the chapter, and we get some examples, and so we practice some vocabulary. But the focus is on pronunciation, intonation, accentuation. So if you want to improve your accent, if you want to improve your pronunciation, then I encourage you to stay until the end and practice with us. Now, I think the maximum people that I can do are 2 at a time, and I have 2 regulars who are usually with me. So, I'm leaving a link to the Discord in the description, and I encourage you to join. But usually, it's 2 people who are trying very hard to improve their pronunciation and accents. But if one day one of them doesn't come, or they have to leave early, then somebody new could join in. I really would like to do that because I think it's good to have people at different levels or different accents to work with. So I've already got 2 people that I use all the time, but we definitely need more people who are willing to jump in when they're not available. And David Garcia says hello. Hello, David Garcia. How are you doing? And he says, Happy Thanksgiving. Oh, thank you. I'm having a Mexican Thanksgiving tomorrow with chorizo and beans and tortillas and no turkey. All right, well, let's get started with Chapter 16 of Dracula. Dr. Seward's diary continued. It was just a quarter before 12 o'clock when we got into the churchyard over the low wall. The night was dark, and occasional gleams of moonlight between the dents of heavy clouds that scudded across the sky. We all kept somehow close together, with Van Helsing slightly in front as he led the way. When we had come close to the tomb, I looked well at Arthur, for I feared that proximity to a place laden with so sorrowful a memory would upset him. That word laden means full of. So full of so much sorrow. This place is full of so much sorrow, he would be upset. But he bore himself well. I took it that the very mystery of the proceeding was in some way a counteractant to his grief. The professor unlocked the door, and seeing a natural hesitation amongst us for various reasons, solved the difficulty by entering first himself. The rest of us followed, and he closed the door. He then lit a dark lantern and pointed to a coffin. Arthur stepped forward, hesitatingly. Van Helsing said to me, "You were with me here yesterday. Was the body of Miss Lucy in that coffin?" It was. The professor turned to the rest, saying, "You hear? And yet there is no one who does not believe with me." He took his screwdriver and again took off the lid of the coffin. Arthur looked on. You know, it's funny, we keep running into that. I never realized how common that was to use the word on combined with a verb to mean continue. Walk on means continue walking. Talk on means continue talking. Go on or carry on, those are just sort of general words that mean continue doing something. And here we have look on, which means continue looking. Very pale but silent. When the lid was removed, he stepped forward. He evidently did not know that there was a leaden coffin, or at any rate, he had not thought of it. When he saw the rent in the lead, the blood rushed to his face for an instant, but as quickly fell away again, so that he remained of a ghastly whiteness. And we've talked about the word ghastly before. That means horrible. He was still silent. Van Helsing forced back the leaden flange, and we all looked in and recoiled. To recoil is to go like this. So they looked in, and then they went like that. They recoiled. The coffin was empty. For several minutes, no one spoke a word. The silence was broken by Quincy Morris. Professor, I answered for you. Your word is all I want. I wouldn't ask such a thing ordinarily. I wouldn't so dishonor you as to imply doubt. But this is a mystery that goes beyond any honor or dishonor. Is this your doing? So he's asking, Professor, I don't want to offend you, okay? I trust you. But I have to ask, are you the one who took the body out of the coffin? Why is there no body here? I swear to you by all that I hold sacred, I have not removed or touched her. What happened was this. 2 nights ago, my friend Seward and I came here with good purpose, believe me. I opened that coffin, which was then sealed up, and we found it as now, empty. We then waited and saw something white come through the trees. The next day we came here in daytime, and she lay there. Did she not, friend John? Yes. That night we were just in time. One more so small child was missing, and we find it, thank God, unharmed amongst the graves. Yesterday I came here before sundown, for at sundown the undead can move. I waited here all night till the sun rose, but I saw nothing. It was most probable that it was because I had laid over the clamps of those doors garlic, which the undead cannot bear. Bear means tolerate. And other things which they shun. Shun means go away from me. I don't want that. Get away from me. Last night there was no exodus, so tonight, before the sundown, I took away my garlic and other things, and so it is we find this coffin empty. But bear with me. So far there is much that is strange. Wait you with me outside, unseen and unheard, and things much stranger are yet to be. So. Here he shut the dark slide of his lantern. Now, to the outside. He opened the door, and we filed out. File means to go in a line. Well, a file is a line. So to file out means they walked like one by one in a line out of the tomb. He coming last and locking the door behind him. Oh, but it seemed fresh and pure in the night air after the terror of that vault. How sweet it was to see the clouds race by in the passing gleams of the moonlight, between the scudding clouds, crossing and passing, like the gladness and sorrow of a man's life. How sweet it was to breathe the fresh air that had no taint of death or decay. A taint is like a stain, like a pollution, like a dirtying of something. So what did it say? Like how sweet it was to see the clouds go by between the scudding and gleams of moonlight between the scudding clouds, crossing and passing like the gladness and sorrows of a man's life. How sweet it was to breathe the fresh air that had no taint of death and decay. So previously they were in that little building with the dead bodies, and it smelled old and moldy and dirty, and it smelled like death because of all the dead bodies in there. But now that they had left that small room and they were out in the open, it was nice to smell the air that was not dirtied with that. How humanizing to see the red lighting of the sky beyond the hill, to hear far away the muffled roar that marks the life of a great city. Muffled is when something is interfering with a sound. This is my voice being muffled. So this would be a muffled voice because something is covering my mouth. It's interfering. So to hear the muffled noise of the city, maybe the city isn't too far away, but there are trees and hills and things, so you can hear some noises of the city, but it's being interfered with from the trees and things like that. The distance. Each in his own way was solemn and overcome. To be overcome means to feel overwhelmed or to feel overpowered. It's a really weird thing to go into a tomb and then open up somebody's coffin and see that there's no body there, and then to walk out and you don't know what you're waiting for. So there's a feeling of being powerless in that situation. Arthur was silent, and was, I could see, striving to gasp for the purpose and the inner meaning of the mystery. I was myself tolerably patient and half inclined, again, to throw aside doubt and to accept Van Helsing's conclusions. And we've talked about that word incline already. We've even practiced it. This is straight up and down, and this is side to side. But this is an incline, like this, or, like this, or like this. That's an incline. So if you're inclined to do something, you're leaning in that, you're going in that direction. So you have a preference for that direction. You're not doing it yet. You're not 100% there, but you're very close to that. I myself was tolerably patient and half inclined again to throw aside doubt and to accept Van Helsing's conclusions. Quincey Morris was phlegmatic in a way of a man who accepts all things and accepts them in the spirit of cool bravery with hazard of all he has at stake. Not being able to smoke, he cut himself a good-sized plug of tobacco and began to chew. As to Van Helsing, he was employed in a definite way. First, he took from his bag a mass of what looked like thin wafer-like biscuit, which was carefully rolled up in a white napkin. Next, he took out a double handful of some whitish stuff. When you add the word ish to something, this makes it mean approximately. It means not exactly. So, what time do you want to meet at the restaurant? How about 5-ish? That means not exactly 5, maybe a little before, maybe a little bit after. Or, Sometimes it's difficult to say whether a color is green or blue. Some people get those colors confused because there's an area where it could be either. So what color is that? It's bluish. It's greenish. So that suffix ish is pretty common to attach to the end of a word to mean approximately. And here it says, how did they use it here? First he took out from his bag a mass of what looked like thin wafer-like biscuit, which was carefully rolled up in a white napkin. Next he took out a double handful of some whitish stuff. So it was whitish, maybe a little gray, maybe a little yellow, not exactly white. Like dough or putty, he crumbled the wafer up fine and worked it into a mass between his hands. And then he took, and rolling it into thin strips, began to lay them into the crevices between the door. A crevice is like a small space. So the crevice of the door would maybe be, if you close the door, it would be that space between the door and the wall. Something like that, probably. Into the crevices between the door and its setting in the tomb. I was somewhat puzzled at this and being close, asked him what it was that he was doing. Arthur and Quincy drew near also, and they too were curious. He answered, I'm closing the tomb so that the undead may not enter. And is that stuff you have there going to do it? It is. What is it that you're using? This time the question was by Arthur. Van Helsing reverently, that means with a lot of respect, lifted his hat as he answered, the host. I brought it from Amsterdam. I have an indulgence. So, when Catholics go to church on Sunday, there's a period where everyone goes up to the priest, and the priest gives them a little piece of bread and puts it in their mouth, and then gives them a little drink of wine. And that's just part of the ritual of going to church if you're a Catholic. And so the host, that's the bread. So he's taking this holy bread and this blessed bread, and he's putting it in the cracks of the door so that Lucy can't open it. It was an answer that appalled the most skeptical of us. Skeptical, that's a pretty good word. I'm going to put that on my list for today. Skeptical means suspicious. Doubting. Let's see, skeptical. So, this whole situation is very strange, but they're going along with it, and it's getting more interesting. There's no dead body in the coffin, but of course everybody doubts what Professor Van Helsing is doing. They think he might be crazy. Now he's crumbling up pieces of holy bread and putting it in the doors, and they're saying, "Oh, maybe this guy really is crazy." They're getting more skeptical. They're doubting it more. And we felt individually that in the presence of such earnest purpose as the professor's, purpose which could thus use, let me read that again, a purpose which could thus use the to him most sacred of things, it was impossible to distrust. In respectful silence, we took the places assigned to us round the tomb, but hidden from the sight of any one approaching. I pitied the others, especially Arthur. I had myself been apprenticed by my former visits to this watching horror, An apprentice is like a student. He's usually a master will have like an assistant who he's training, and that's an apprentice. So he feels, I forget who's speaking, but he feels like I forget the name of the person speaking, but he feels like he's an apprentice to the professor because he's already been on several trips to this tomb with him. So he feels like the assistant. By my former visits to this watching horror, and yet I, who had up to an hour ago repudiated the proofs, to repudiate something means to reject it, felt my heart sink within me. Never did tombs look so ghastly white. Never did cypress or yew or juniper so seem the embodiment of funeral gloom. Those are the names of tree types. Cypress trees, yew trees, juniper trees. So they seemed so. They seem to embody means give body to, give physical presence to. So he's seen these trees before, but now he's looking at them, and what he associates with them is the graveyard, the funeral. Never did tree or grass wave or rustle so ominously. Ominous is a word that means you think something horrible is coming, or there's something evil around you, or there's something evil everywhere around you. Never did bow creak so mysteriously. A bow is like a branch of a tree, and creak is the sound. And never did the faraway howling of dogs send such a woeful presage through the night. So the howling is ow. There was a long spell of silence, and we've talked about the word spell meaning a short period of time, or maybe even just a period of time. There was a long spell of silence. There was a long period of time of silence. Big, aching void, and then from the professor, a keen "sss." He pointed. And far down the avenue of yews, we saw a white figure advance, a dim, white figure, which held something dark at its breast. The figure stopped, and at the moment a ray of moonlight fell upon the masses of driving clouds and showed in startling prominence a dark-haired woman dressed in the cerements of the grave. We could not see the face, for it was bent down over what we saw to be a fair-haired child. Fair means light, so this child had light-colored hair. There was a pause, and a sharp little cry, such as a child gives in sleep, or a dog as it lies before the fire in dreams. We were starting forward, but the professor's warning hand, seen by us as he stood behind a yew tree, kept us back. And then we looked. The white figure moved forwards again. It was now near enough for us to see clearly, and the moonlight still held. My own heart grew cold as ice, and I could hear the gasp of Arthur as we recognized the features of Lucy Westenra. Lucy Westenra! But yet how changed. The sweetness was turned to adamantine heartless cruelty, and the purity to voluptuous wantonness. Let's see what adamantine means. I wonder if it's related to the word adamant. Adamant would mean like very insistent. Adamantine is an adjective that describes unbreakable, extremely hard. I think it is probably related to the word adamant. Firm or resolute. So she was determined to be heartless and cruel. Van Helsing stepped out, and obedient to his gesture, We all advanced too. The four of us ranged in a line before the door of the tomb. Van Helsing raised his lantern and drew the slide. But the concentrated light that fell on Lucy's face, we could see that the lips were crimson with fresh blood. Crimson is the color red, but it's the color red of blood. You know, there are different kinds of red. This is the color of blood. And that the stream had trickled over her chin. When liquid falls, we say it trickles. So it's like a little stream of liquid trickling down, moving down. That's the move. Trickling is the small movement of water or liquid. In this case, it's blood. And that the stream had trickled over her chin and stained the purity of her lawn death robe. We shuddered with horror. I could see by the tremulous light that even Van Helsing's iron nerve had failed. Arthur was next to me. And if I had not seized his arm, seize means take forcefully. If I had not seized his arm and held him up, he would have fallen. When Lucy, I call the thing that was Lucy before us Lucy because it bore her shape, saw us, she drew back with an angry snarl. A snarl is when you move your lips like this, like a dog, an angry dog, such as a cat gives when taken unawares. And then her eyes ranged over us. Lucy's eyes, in form and color, but Lucy's eyes unclean and full of hellfire instead of pure, gentle orbs. Orbs are circles that we knew. At that moment, the remnant of my love passed into hate and loathing. We've seen that word loathing many times. That means extreme hate. Hate very, very much. Had she then to be killed? I could have done it with a savage delight. As she looked, her eyes blazed with unholy light. Blazing is like the movement of flames in a fire. So blazing is like the light of a fire. So her eyes blazed with unholy light. And the face became wreathed with a voluptuous smile. Voluptuous kind of means like sexy. So she's so suddenly she gets a beautiful smile like, Oh God, how it made me shudder to see it. With a careless motion, she flung to the ground, callous as a devil, the child that up to now she had clutched strenuously to her breast, growling. Growling is what a dog does. Over it, as a dog growls over a bone. The child gave a sharp cry and lay there moaning. There was a cold-bloodedness in the act. When you say that someone is cold-blooded, it means that they don't have feelings of like love or caring about other people. I think earlier we talked about the word apathetic, and that's a much more a cleaner term for the same idea. But to be cold-blooded means you could do anything to anyone and not care how they feel. There was a cold-bloodedness in the act which wrung a groan from Arthur. So Arthur couldn't believe how she just took the little child and threw it to the ground, and she didn't seem to care. And Arthur, who was going to be her husband when she was alive, what did he say? What did it say? He groaned. Like, groaning is, oh. So he made a kind of noise like that. When she advanced to him with outstretched arms and a wanton smile, he fell back and hid his face in his hands. She still advanced, however, and with a languorous, voluptuous grace said, Come to me, Arthur. Leave these others and come to me. My arms are hungry for you. Come, we can rest together. Come, my husband, come. There was something diabolically sweet in her tones. I think that word diabolical, it comes from the same word as devil. So diabolical means evil, but you could see where it might be related to the word devil. There was something diabolically sweet in her tone, something of the tinkling of glass when struck, which rang through the brains even of us who heard the words addressed to another. As for Arthur, he seemed under a spell. It's funny that we keep seeing that word spell used in different ways. If you know the word spell, you probably know it meaning cat. C-A-T, cat. That's spelling the word cat. But just a few pages ago, we saw that the word spell could mean a period of time. For a long spell, everyone was silent. For a long period of time, everyone was silent. And now they're using spell another way. Here it means magic. As for Arthur, he seemed under a spell. He seemed under her magic. Moving his hands from his face, he opened wide his arms, and she was leaping for them. Leaping means jumping. Van Helsing sprang forward and held between them his little golden crucifix. She recoiled from it. With a suddenly distorted face, full of rage is very strong anger, dashed past him, as if to enter the tomb. Dashing means running. When within a foot or two of the door, however, she stopped, as if arrested by some irresistible force. If you know that word arrest, you probably think of the police, but arrest just means stop. As if stopped by some irresistible force. And then she turned, and her face was shown in the clear burst of moonlight and by the lamp, which had now no quiver from Van Helsing's nerves. Never did I see such a baffled malice on a face. Baffled means confused, and malice means bad intent, bad intentions. Confused, so she's confused and wants to do something bad. And never, I trust, shall such ever be seen again by mortal eyes. The beautiful color became livid. The eyes seemed to throw out sparks of hellfire. The brows were wrinkled as though the folds of flesh were the coils of Medusa's snakes, and the lovely blood-stained mouth grew to an open square, as in the passion masks of the Greek and Japanese. If ever a face meant death, if looks could kill, we saw it at that moment. And so, for a full half a minute, which seemed an eternity, she remained between the lifted crucifix and the sacred closing of her means of entry. Van Helsing broke the silence by asking Arthur, "Answer me, oh my friend, am I to proceed in my work?" "Do as you will, friend, do as you will. There can be no horror like this ever any more." And he groaned in spirit, groaning as, "Oh." Quincy and I simultaneously moved towards him. That means we did it at the same time, simultaneously, at the same time. I'm just looking for some vocabulary words in case anybody wants to practice later. And I think simultaneously is a pretty good word, actually, so I think I'll make that my final word on my list today. If I can find it. No. Where did it go? Okay. Quincy and I simultaneously moved towards him, and took his arms, we could hear the click of the closing lantern as Van Helsing held it down. Coming close to the tomb, he began to remove from the chinks some of the sacred emblem which he had placed there. We all looked with horrified amazement as we saw, when he stood back, the woman with a corporeal body, as real at that moment as our own, pass through the interstice where scarce a knife blade could have gone. We all felt glad sense of relief when we saw the professor calmly restoring the strings of putty to the edges of the door. When this was done, he lifted the child and said, "Come now, my friends, we can do no more till tomorrow. There is a funeral at noon, so here we shall all come before long after that. The friends of the dead will all be gone by 2, and when the sexton locks the gate, we shall remain. Then there is more to do, but not like this of tonight. And for this little one, as for this little one, he is not much harmed, and by tomorrow night he shall be well. We shall leave him here. We shall leave him where the police will find him, as on the other night, and then to home." Coming close to Arthur, he said, "My friend Arthur, you have had a sore trial, but after, when you look back, you will see how it was necessary. You are now in the bitter waters, my child, but this time tomorrow you will, please God, have passed them, and have drunk of the sweet waters. So do not mourn over much. Till then I shall not ask you to forgive me." Arthur and Quincy came home with me, and we tried to cheer each other on the way. We had left behind the child in safety and were tired, so we all slept with more or less reality of sleep. 29th of September, night. A little before 12 o'clock, we 3, Arthur, Quincy Morris, and myself, called for the professor. It was odd to notice that by common consent we had all put on black clothes. Of course, Arthur wore black, for he was in deep mourning. But the rest of us wore it by instinct. We got to the graveyard by 1:30 and strolled about. We've talked about that word stroll. We've even practiced it. That just means to go for a walk, a relaxing walk. Nowhere special, just walking because you want to walk. We got to the graveyard by 1:30 and strolled about, keeping out of official observation, so that when the grave diggers had completed their task, and the sexton, under the belief that everyone had gone, had locked the gate, we had the place all to ourselves. Van Helsing, instead of his little black bag, had with him a long leather one, something like a cricketing bag. It was manifestly of fair weight. When we were alone, and had heard the last of the footsteps die out up the road, we silently, and as if by ordered intention, followed the professor to the tomb. He unlocked the door, and we entered, closing it behind us. Then he took from his bag the lantern, which he lit, and also 2 wax candles, which when lighted, he stuck by melting their own ends. Oh, Pachu's here. Hello, Pachu. How are you doing today? On the other coffins, so that they might give light sufficient to work by. When he again lifted the lid off Lucy's coffin, we all looked. Arthur, trembling like an aspen, trembling as shaking. And we saw the corpse lay there in all its death beauty, but there was no love in my own heart, nothing but loathing. Loathing, very strong hate. Nothing but loathing for the foul thing. Foul, that means disgusting, ugly, smells bad. Nothing but loathing for the foul thing which had taken Lucy's shape without her soul. I could see even Arthur's face grow hard as he looked. Presently he said to Van Helsing, "Is this really Lucy's body, or only a demon in her shape? It is her body, and yet not it. But wait a while, and you shall see her as she was and is." She seemed like a nightmare of Lucy as she lay there, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained, voluptuous mouth. Remember that word voluptuous is kind of like sexy, which made one shudder to see. The whole carnal and unspirited appearance, seeming like a devilish mockery of Lucy's sweet purity. Van Helsing, with his usual methodicalness, began taking the various contents from his bag and placing them ready for use. First, he took out a soldering iron and some plumbing solder, and then a small oil lamp which gave out. When lit in a corner of the tomb, gas which burned at a fierce heat with a blue flame. Then his operating knives, which he placed to hand, and last a round wooden stake, some 2.5 or 3 inches thick and about 3 feet long. One end of it was hardened by charring in the fire, and was sharpened to a fine point. With this stake came a heavy hammer, such as in households is used in the coal cellar for breaking the lumps. To me, a doctor's preparations for work of any kind are stimulating and bracing, but the effect of these things on both Arthur and Quincy was to cause them a sort of consternation. They both, however, kept their courage and remained silent and quiet. When all was ready, Van Helsing said, "Before we do anything, let me tell you this. It is out of the lore and experience of the ancients and all those who have studied the powers of the undead. Lore means stories, stories that people tell." So Van Helsing is saying, what we're doing, this is not scientific. This is something, these are things I learned from the stories, like ancient stories, ancient lore. Lore means stories. When they become such, there comes with the change the curse of immortality. They cannot die, but must go on. Here we have go on meaning continue. Must go on, age after age, adding new victims and multiplying the evils of the world. For all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead, and prey on their kind. Prey is the victim of a hunting animal. So, if you have a lion and a lion sees a rabbit, who's going to, if they have a fight, well, first of all, do you think that a rabbit would attack a lion? Probably not. But a lion would attack a rabbit. So a lion is called a predator. That means like a hunter. And the type of animals that a lion attacks are called prey. So the rabbit would be prey. Now, a vampire hunts people. So the vampire is the predator, and the victim, the people, are his prey. So this is not P-R-A-Y, pray, like, oh dear God, please help me. That's not pray. This is P-R-A-Y, Rey, and that means like a victim of a bigger, stronger animal. For all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead. So if you become the victim of a vampire, you become a vampire. Undead and prey on their kind. And so the circle goes on forever ever widening, like as the ripples from a stone thrown in the water. The ripples are the circles. If you throw a stone in the water, you get the little circles around it. Those are ripples. Friend Arthur, if you had met that kiss, which you know of before poor Lucy died, or again last night, when you open your arms to her, you would in time, when you had died, have become Nosferatu, as they call it in Eastern Europe, and would for all time make more of those undeads that have so filled us with horror. The career of this so unhappy dear lady is just begun. Those children whose blood she sucked are not as yet so much the worse. But if she lives on, undead, more and more they lose their blood, and by her power over them they come to her. And so she draw their blood with that so wicked mouth. But if she die in truth, then all cease. Cease means stop. The tiny wounds of the throats disappear, and they go back to their play, unknowing ever of what has been. But the most blessed of all, when this now undead be made to rest as true dead, then the soul of the poor lady whom we love shall again be free. Instead of working wickedness by night, and growing more debased in the assimilating of it by day, she shall take her place with the other angels. So that, my friend, it will be a blessed hand for her that shall strike the blow that sets her free. To this I am willing. But is there none amongst us who has a better right? Will it be no joy to think of hereafter in the silence of the night, when sleep is not? It was my hand that sent her to the stars. It was the hand of him that loved her best, the hand of all those she would herself have chosen, had it been her to choose. Tell me if there's such a one amongst us. We all looked at Arthur. He saw, too, what we all did. The infinite kindness which suggested that his should be the hand which would restore Lucy to us as a holy and not an unholy memory. And he stepped forward and said bravely, though his hand trembled, and his face was as pale as snow, "My true friend, from the bottom of my broken heart I thank you. Tell me what I am to do, and I shall not falter. To falter is to hesitate." Van Helsing laid a hand on his shoulder and said, "Brave lad, a moment's courage, and it's done. This stake, what they mean by stake is going to be a piece of wood, maybe like a round piece of wood, but it's very sharp at one end. Let's just, since it's such an important part of the scene, let's take a look at a wooden stake. Whoops. So a wooden stake, something like this. Just a piece of wood, but it's very sharp at one end, very pointed at one end, like that. This stake must be driven through her. So that means you must take the stake and it well may be a fearful ordeal. Be not deceived in that, but it will only be for a short time, and you will then rejoice more than your pain was great. For this grim tomb you will emerge as though you tread on air. But you must not falter when once you have begun. Only think that we, your true friends, are round you, and that we pray for you all the time. Go on, said Arthur hoarsely. Tell me what I'm to do. Take this stake in your left hand, ready to place it to the point over the heart, and the hammer in your right. Then we begin our prayer for the dead. I shall read him. I have here the book, and the others shall follow. Strike in God's name, that so all may be well with the dead that we love, and that the undead pass away. Pass away is a phrasal verb which means to die. Arthur took the stake and the hammer, and once his mind was set on the action, his hands never trembled, nor even quivered. Those are just two words for shaking. Van Helsing opened his missal and began to read, and Quincy and I followed as well as we could. Arthur placed the point over the heart, and as I looked, I could see its dint in the white flesh. And then he struck with all his might. That word might means strength. So he had the stake and the hammer, and then he hit, he struck with all of his might, with all of his strength. In the coffin writhed, and a hideous blood-curdling screech. A screech is a very loud scream. Like that. Oh, Muhammad's here. Hello, Muhammad. How are you doing tonight? The thing in the coffin writhed, and a hideous, blood-curdling screech came from the open red lips. The body shook and quivered and twisted wild contortions. The sharp white teeth champed, it's like biting really hard, together till the lips were cut. And the mouth was smeared with a crimson foam. But Arthur never faltered. He looked like a figure of Thor as his untrembling arm rose and fell, driving deeper and deeper the mercy-bearing stake, whilst the blood from the pierced heart welled and spurted up around it. His face was set. The high duty seemed to shine through it. The sight of it gave us courage, so that our voices seemed to ring through the little vault. Then the writhing, we've seen that. I had no idea how common that word was, but we see it in every single book. It's the movement of a snake. And you could writhe in pain. You know, if you get hurt really bad, you say, ow. You move like a snake. That's writhing. And quivering is like shaking. And then the writhing and quivering of the body became less, and the teeth seemed to champ, and the face to quiver, and finally it lay still. The terrible task was over. The hammer fell from Arthur's hand. He reeled and would have fallen had we not caught him. The great drops of sweat sprang from his forehead, and his breath came in broken gasps. It had indeed been an awful strain on him, and had he not been forced to his task by more than human considerations, he could have never gone through with it. For a few minutes we were so taken up with him that we did not look towards the coffin. When we did, however, a murmur of startled surprise ran from one to the other of us. We gazed so eagerly that Arthur rose, for he had been seated on the ground, and came and looked too. And then a glad, strange light broke over his face, and dispelled means goes away altogether, the gloom and horror that lay upon it. There, in the coffin, lay no longer the foul thing that we had so dreaded and grown to hate, that the work of her destruction was yielded as a privilege to one best entitled to it, but Lucy, as we had seen her in life, with her face of unequaled sweetness and purity. True that there were there, as we had seen them in life, the traces of care and pain and waste. But these were all dear to us, for they marked her truth to what we knew. One and all, we felt the holy calm that lay like sunshine over the wasted face and form was only an earthly token and symbol of calm that was to reign forever. Van Helsing came and laid his hand on Arthur's shoulder and said to him, "And now, Arthur, my friend, dear lad, am I not forgiven?" The reaction of the terrible strain came as he took the old man's hand in his, and raising it to his lips, pressed it and said, "Forgiven. God bless you that you have given my dear one her soul again, and me peace." He put his hands on the professor's shoulder, and laying his head on his breast, cried for a while, silently, whilst we stood unmoving. When he raised his head, Van Helsing said to him, "And now, my child, you may kiss her. Kiss her dead lips if you will, as she would have you to, if for her to choose. For she is not grinning like devil now, not any more a foul thing, for all eternity. No longer she is the devil's undead. She is God's true dead, whose soul is with him." Arthur bent and kissed her, and then we went to see him and Quincy out of the tomb. The professor and I sawed the top of the stake, leaving the point of it in the body, and then we cut off the head and filled the mouth with garlic. We soldered up the leaden coffin, screwed on the coffin lid, and gathering up our belongings, came away. When the professor locked the door, he gave the key to Arthur. Outside, the air was sweet, the sun shone, the birds sang, and it seemed as if all nature were tuned to a different pitch. There was gladness and mirth. Mirth means happiness, and peace everywhere, for we were at rest ourselves on one account, and we were glad, though it was a tempered joy. Before we moved away, Van Helsing said, "Now, my friends, one step of our work is done, one of the most harrowing to ourselves, but there remains a greater task, to find out the author of all this our sorrow, and to stamp him out. I have clues which we can follow, but it is a long task and a difficult one, and there is danger in it and pain. Shall you not help me? We have learned to believe, all of us, is it not so? And since so, do we not see our duty? Yes. And do we not promise to go on to the bitter end?" Each in turn we took his hand, and the promise was made, and then said the professor as we moved off, "2 nights hence you shall meet with me and dine together at 7 o'clock with friend John. I shall entreat 2 others, 2 that you know not as yet. And I shall be ready to all our work show and our plans unfold. Friend John, you come with me home, for I have much to consult you about, and you can help me. Tonight I leave for Amsterdam, but shall return tomorrow night, and then begins our greatest quest. But first I shall have much to say, so that you may know what to do and to dread. Then our promise shall be made to each other anew, for there is a terrible task before us, and once our feet are on the plowshare, we must not draw back. Okay, well, that was the end of chapter 16 of Dracula. That was actually a pretty short chapter. Now I see that Pachu and Mohammed are here, so would both of you like to practice now? If so, let me know in the chat. Pachu says moved off. Moved off, I think that's a pretty literal phrasal verb, because you have move, which means move, and then you have off, which means to maybe leave a place or to go from a place. So moving off just means leave in another way. Okay, Mohammed says that he would like to practice. I think Pachu probably will say yes in a moment. And so I'm just going to take a 1-minute break, and then when I return, we'll practice a couple of the words that we have talked about in this chapter. But the focus will be on pronunciation, intonation, and accentuation. So if you want to improve your accent, if you want to improve your pronunciation, then I would recommend that you stay for the next hour and work along with us. Okay, I will be back in 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. Now let's see. We're just going to switch to a different program here. And we've got these vocabulary words. And now we're going to go over to Discord, where hopefully Pachu and Mohammed will join us. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Okay. So Pachi is here. I don't see Mohammed yet. Oh, he said he was coming, so he should be here pretty soon, I guess. All right. Pachu,
Hello, sir.
do you see the first word on the screen?
Yes.
What can you read that word? What is that first word?
Skep-
Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
skeptical.
Skeptical, skeptical. Have you seen that word before?
Yes.
What does that mean, skeptical?
Uh, like assumption.
Can you repeat that, please?
Assumption
I'm not sure what that word is that you're saying. Can you be more specific? Or can you say it in a different way?
is a guess.
As a guess?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it really means to guess. It's more like to doubt something, to not be sure about something. To
Yes.
guess means to give an idea, but you're not sure about the idea. Well, it's like the mirror image of guess, because if somebody says something, uh, and you're not sure if you believe that person, you can say that you're skeptical. But if you
Yes.
say something
Yes.
and you're not sure about something, that's a guess. You see the difference?
Yes.
One comes from inside and one comes from outside. So if the idea is coming from you and there's doubt, that's a guess. So if that's coming from the inside and there's doubt, that's a guess. But if you're hearing the information from the outside and you're not sure, that's being skeptical. Do you understand?
Yes.
Mohammed, have you seen that word before? Skeptical?
Yes,
Hmm. Okay. Can you read the sentence, Mohammed? What is the sentence?
she was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Okay. So she hears information from outside. He said he was going to finish the project on time. And Muhammad, Pachu, what does she believe him? Does she believe that he can finish the project on time?
No,
Mm,
Go ahead, Pachu.
mm, maybe or may not be, but she's expecting.
Well,
Yeah.
she maybe she hopes, but she's not sure.
Yes.
She doesn't believe him. She doesn't really believe him. Kind of means she doesn't believe him. Let's think of it like that. Maybe that would be a good way of thinking about it. Pachu, how will you say the first three words of that sentence?
She was skeptical.
Okay. What do you think is the big word in that? And if you think about those first three words, which word would you say is the big word?
Skeptical.
Skeptical. Where's the big sound in that word?
Uh, Kep.
Skep.
Kep.
Skep.
Kep. Yeah.
Skep. Okay. So that will sound very small. She was skeptical. Can you say it like
She
that?
was she was skeptical.
Okay. Muhammad, can you say that those first three words? She was skeptical.
she was skeptical.
How do you think you would add the next two words, Muhammad?
skeptical about his
About is. Is that a big sound or a little sound?
small.
Small. So we have small, big, small. We have she was skeptical about his. Can you
About his.
Yeah, can you say the whole phrase? She was skeptical about his.
She was skeptical about his
About it. She was. Can you say tickle?
tickle
Tickle about.
tickle about
Tickle about his.
tickle about his
Skeptical about his.
skeptical about his.
She was skeptical about his.
She was skeptical about this
What is the next word, Muhammad?
promise.
Does that have a big sound?
Promise, yes.
Promise. So that's big, right?
Yes.
Okay. So can you add that word to our phrase? She was skeptical about his promise.
She was skeptical about his promise.
Pachu, can you say that phrase? She was skeptical about his promise.
She was skeptical about his promise.
Okay. How will you add the next two words, Pachu?
Uh, to finish
How does that word to usually sound in the middle of a phrase like that?
is a to
To,
finish
to finish, to finish, to finish.
to finish
Which is the big sound in that phrase? To finish.
to finish pin.
Fin. Okay. All right. So you see how we're building our big, small, big, small, big, small, with all the important words being having a big part. So
Yes,
she was skeptical to finish his prom. She was skeptical. She was skeptical about his promise to finish.
she was skeptical about his promise to finish
And how would you add the word "the" to that phrase?
to finish
Finish
the.
the. Finish the. She was skeptical about his promise to finish the.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the.
Okay. Can you say that, Muhammad? She was skeptical about his promise to finish the.
She was she was skeptical about his promise to finish the
Okay. What is the next phrase? What is the next word in that phrase, Muhammad?
project.
Okay. Project. Project. Are there any big sounds in that word?
Project.
Which sound?
Pro.
Pra. Pra is big, so we'll make that big here. Okay. So we have she was skeptical about his promise to finish the project.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project.
Okay. Can you say that, Pachu?
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project.
Okay. What is the final word in our phrase, Pachu?
It's on time,
Okay. Now, when you have a phrase like that, which word do you normally give the emphasis to?
It is second on.
Well, on time. You know what? It is on time. On time. It is though. Usually it's the first word, but actually here it's the second word. So that works pretty well with us anyway. So we'll
Yes,
emphasize the word time, but it should be anyway.
yes,
All right.
time.
So now we have a wonderful big small big small big small pattern. She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
That's good. Mohammed, can you say the whole sentence?
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Skeptical, promise, finish, project on time. She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time. Try to emphasize those big syllables.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Okay. Mohammed, how many phrases do you think we have in this sentence? How will you divide this sentence into phrases?
2.
Two? Okay, what are the two phrases?
Promise and to finish.
Okay, so you want to separate it here? All right.
Yes.
And what do you think? Would you like to sound friendly and nice when you say this phrase, or would you like to sound serious or educational when you say this phrase?
Serious.
Okay. Now, in the first phrase, she was skeptical about his promise. What would you say is the most important word?
Promise.
Okay. All right. So should we say that high? Should we say promise? Or should we say promise? Which one?
Promise.
Low? Okay.
Yes.
So we'll make that blue. We'll make that blue. And how should we start our phrase? Should we start it with a high tone or a low tone?
High tone.
Okay. So she was skeptical about his promise.
She was skeptical about his promise.
Mhm. She was skeptical about his promise. Pachu, can you say that?
She was skeptical about his promise.
Okay. Now, in the second phrase, Pachu, what do you think should be the most important word?
So project
Project?
and then finish and then finish.
Okay. She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time. I don't think that's neutral because if you emphasize, if you make project the most important word in this phrase, that means not the emails, not the presentation, but the project. So
Yes.
I don't think that's neutral. I think probably the more important word would be time. Do you
Okay.
understand why? Do you understand the difference?
Yes. Yes. Because the project is always finish on time.
It seems like on time is an adverb in this sense. So uh, usually the adverb or the adjective will be the thing that you want to stress, but also it seems that most of the time the most important, not always, but most of the time the most important word will be very close to the end of the phrase.
Yes. Yes.
Now, do you want to sound serious or do you want to sound friendly and nice as you say this?
Yeah, the serious
Serious? Okay, so how should you say it? Should you say on on time or on time?
on time.
Okay. So we'll make that blue. How should we start the phrase? Should we say finish or finish?
Is a high tone. Is
High.
a finish.
So we'll start high and then we'll just move down to the low as we say the
Yeah.
word. So to to finish the project on time.
To finish the project on time.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Mohammed, can you say the entire sentence?
She was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Mohammed, can you make a how she feel? This is going to be a question in the past, okay? How she feel about his promise? How would you make a question in the past with how she feel about his promise?
how she felt about his promise.
Okay, well, you have to use the question form if you're making a question. What is the question form of she felt?
Um, how did she feel
That's right.
about his promise?
That's right. Say it again. Make that question again.
How did she feel about his promise?
What is the most important word in your question?
How, how,
How? How?
yes,
Can you say that?
how,
How?
how,
How will you put the word so that should be longer because it's very important. How? How?
how,
And then how will you add did she? How does that sound?
how did she feel about
Mhm.
his promise?
Yeah, so we have how, that's big. Did she feel? How did she feel? So we've got big, small, big. How did she feel?
How did she feel?
How did she feel about his promise?
How did she feel about his promise?
That was really good. Pachu, can you make that question? How would you say that?
Yes, but I have to say one thing, sir.
Okay.
So in sentence, his promise or her promise is talking about her or another person.
I don't understand your question. Can you repeat that, please?
No, in this sentence there is his promise.
Uh huh.
It should be her promise or is his promise.
Well, imagine she is the boss, and John is her employee, and she says, "John,
Okay,
John, can you finish the project on time?" "Oh, yes." "Okay." And she thinks, I don't believe him. So she was
okay,
skeptical about John's promise. She was skeptical. Does that make sense?
okay. I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How would you make that question? How did she feel?
How did she feel?
Don't forget to whistle when you say the word she. How did she?
How did she
That was good.
see?
That was good.
How did she
That was
feel
that last one was
about his?
sorry. But the last one was really good. Go ahead. I won't interrupt.
Okay. How did she uh, keep? How did she skeptical
How did she feel?
about?
How did she feel
Okay. How did she feel
about
about his promise
Mhm.
to finish the project on time?
That's right. What is the answer, Pachu?
S- Uh, she was skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time,
What does that mean that she was skeptical?
as she's she has hope that the project will finish, but not sure.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean that she has hope really. It's just that she doesn't believe him.
Okay.
She has doubts. Maybe she
Yeah.
hopes. She probably hopes so. If she's asking about it, she probably hopes so. Mohammed, how did she feel about his promise to finish the project on time?
She felt skeptical about his promise to finish the project on time.
Mm-hmm. What is the? Can you read the next sentence, Mohammed? What is the next sentence?
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Okay. Do you remember that we talked about that word spell? We've actually talked about it in several books or in several different chapters. I don't remember where or when. But do you remember what that
A
means here?
spell amount of my time
It is. It is. Have you seen that before?
with you, yes.
With me, yes, but not anywhere else. It's
No, no, not anywhere else.
yeah, but it's something that you could use. I don't know how common it is. I guess it's pretty common. I don't know if I've ever used it, but it wouldn't sound weird if somebody said it to me. It just means a period of time. Okay. So we have he. Can you say the first four words, just the first four words of that sentence? How would you say them?
He worked as a
Okay.
as a
Okay. Now the first thing, that word "worked." That's a pretty hard word for people to say because there are many consonants coming up against each other. Many hard consonants coming up against each other. Kt, kt. He worked. Worked. Can you say that word
he
to?
worked
Go ahead.
worked.
For some reason, I would think somebody who speaks Arabic would not have a problem with that because Arabic doesn't really like vowel sounds too much, right? They like to put a lot of consonants together. So maybe is it? Do you find that easy to say? Worked.
Yes,
Yeah,
work.
that's
Work.
worked. But you've got to say that T at the end. There's this very strong T at the end.
Work.
Worked. T, t. That's how
Work.
that's how we know it's in the past because of that really ugly sound at the end. T. It's like spitting. Worked.
Work.
Okay, but here you have help because the word as starts with a vowel sound. So as a will sound like this. Teza, teza, teza.
Work. Teza.
Yeah, teza. Can you say teza?
Teza.
Use a ta in the front. T, teza,
Teza.
teza, teza,
Teza. Teza. Teza.
teza. This time you do have to say z,
Teza.
z. This is a z.
The.
This is an S. Can you say sa, like an S?
Sa.
Sa. But now instead of this, so sa, that's where you push the air out. But if you say za, you're pushing the air down your throat instead. So it's the same sound, but instead of the air going out, it goes down. Can you say za?
Za.
Yeah, that's right. Za. Can you say taza?
Teza.
Mm-hmm. Worked as a.
Worked as a.
He worked as a.
He worked as a.
Okay. And do you hear any big sounds? Any big vowel sounds in there? Any long vowel sounds?
Work.
Worked. Okay. So were. We'll put were here. We'll make that big. All right. So we have small, big, small. He worked as a. He worked as a.
He worked as a.
Okay. Pachu, can you say that phrase? He worked as a.
He worked as a work. He worked as a.
He worked as a.
He worked as a.
Okay. Pachu, how would you say the next three words?
Example: farmer for farmer for a
Okay. Farmer for a. Farmer for a. What is the big sound in that phrase? Farmer for a.
is a far.
Far. Far. Okay. All right. So we're building our big small rhythm. We have he worked as a farmer for a.
He worked as a farmer for a.
Okay. All right. Muhammad, can you say that? He worked as a farmer for a.
He worked at a farmer for. He worked as a farmer for a.
He worked as a farmer for a. What is the next word?
Spell.
Okay. All right. Do you think that would sound big or small in our phrase?
Spell. Spell. I see it as a small.
Okay, it is, it is. It is eh. It's a small sound. But is it a big word or is it an important word in our idea?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll make it big just because it's an important
Okay.
word, all right? So normally you're right. I mean, really if you just say the word spell, That's a small sound, but because it's an important word, we'll make it big. He worked as a farmer for a spell.
He worked as a farmer for a spell.
That's good. Okay, that's the rhythm because we want that rhythm, the big, small rhythm, and we want to emphasize the words that are important in our idea. Pachu, can you say that phrase? He worked as a farmer for a spell.
He worked as a farmer for a spell
Okay. Now, Pachu, can you say the next four words?
before moving to the city.
Okay, just the next four words.
Before moving to the
Okay. In that phrase, before moving to the, what do you think is the big word in that phrase?
as a moving
Okay. And which syllable has the big sound in moving?
is a move.
Okay.
Move.
Move,
M-O-V, move.
move, 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 move. When you say that sound, you give a kiss. Move. See my lips? I'm giving a kiss. Move.
Move. Move.
Yeah.
Move.
Moving.
Yes.
Okay. So that's right. That's an important word, but also it helps us to keep our big, small pattern. He worked for a farmer as a, he worked as a far he worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the
Okay. Mohammed, can you say that?
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Okay. And that word city, is that an important word?
Yes.
Okay. And it's got two syllables. Which syllable has the big sound in it?
First one, city.
Si, si,
Ci-
si.
City.
City, city.
City.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have he worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Okay. Muhammad, how many phrases do you think we could divide this sentence into?
Spell and before. Two.
Spell and before too. Okay. If we look at the first phrase, he worked as a farmer for a spell. What do you think could be the most important word in that phrase?
Spell.
Yeah. And now, do you want to sound friendly and nice when you say this phrase, or serious or educational?
Friendly.
Okay. So, because now, when you end a phrase, you should probably end it with a low sound, a low tone. But if you want to sound nicer, you have to give it a little bit of a high tone. So, the way that we'll have to say this word is we'll start high and then we'll go low. So, we'll say spell.
Spell.
You have I think you have trouble doing the high part. Spell,
Spell.
spell, spell.
Spell.
You hear the high and the low.
Spell.
Spell. Okay.
Spell.
How should the phrase start? Should it start high or low?
High.
Yeah, because most phrases do start high and then they move down. Okay. So we can say, he worked as a farmer for a spell.
He worked as a farmer for a spell.
Okay. Pachu, can you say that phrase?
he worked as a farmer for a spell.
Okay. He worked as a farmer for a spell.
He worked as a farmer for a spell.
Oh, for some reason you got cut off on the last word. That's the word I was listening for. And you disappeared. Are you there?
Okay.
Try again.
Yes. He worked as a farmer for a spell.
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 Yeah, so it's kind of the opposite because I know that your temptation is to say spell, but you have to do the opposite and say spell.
Spell.
He worked as a farmer
Spell.
for a spell.
He worked as a farmer for a spell.
Okay, that was good. That was really nice. Now, in the next phrase, Pachu, before moving to the city, what is the most important sound? What is the most important word in that phrase?
Is a city and moving.
Okay, well, I think let's make city our most important
Yeah.
word. Okay. Do you
Yes.
want to, when you say this, do you want to sound nice and friendly, or do you want to sound more serious and businesslike?
The friendly.
Okay. So we have a situation because we have to end, we want to say it in a high tone to sound friendly, but we have to make it kind of low because it's the end of the phrase. So we'll have to divide this word into two tones, high and low. City,
Yes.
city, city,
City. City.
city, city,
City. City.
city.
City.
Okay.
City
And how should you start the phrase?
is a high tone.
Okay. Before moving to the city.
Before moving to the city, city,
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
he worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Mohammed,
City.
can you say before moving to the city? Are you there, Mohammed?
Yes.
Okay. Can you try that? Can you try to say the last phrase before moving to the city?
Before moving to the city.
Okay. Before moving to the city.
Before moving to the city.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Okay. Mohammed, can you make a where he work before moving to the city question? How would you make that question?
Where where did you work before moving to the city?
Okay. And what is your most important word in that question?
Where?
Where. Okay. So how does that sound? If that's a very important word, how does it sound in your question?
Long I say
Where.
where he worked
Okay. What is the question?
before
What is the question form of he worked?
you where did you work?
Okay, how does where and did and he, how do they sound together? Where is very important. Did he is not really that important, so it's very small.
Yes. Did he?
Where did he? Where did he?
Where did he work?
Okay, then work, but that's an important word, right? Work.
Yes.
Okay, where did he work?
Where did he work?
Where did he work?
Before mo
Go ahead.
Where did he work for moving to the city?
Okay, where did he work before moving to the city? Try again.
Where did you work for moving to the city?
Okay. Pachu, can you make the question? Where did he work?
Where did he work? Where did he work?
Do the whole question.
Okay. So, where did he work before moving to the city?
Okay. Where did he work before moving to the city? And what is the answer?
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
He worked as a farmer for a spell before moving to the city.
Muhammad, where did he work before moving to the city?
He worked as, he worked as a farmer for a spell for moving to the city.
Okay. All right. Let's do one more word tonight, okay? I guess this is a short.
Okay. Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Pachu, can you read the sentence that I have written up on the screen? Can you see it?
Yes, sir. Okay, so the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Now, first of all, do you know that word simultaneously?
Yes, at the same time.
At the same time. Two things happen at the same time, okay? And we've seen the word startle many, many times in many, many different books. What does it mean?
Yes, I came across many times, but I could not remember
You always forget?
this.
Okay. That means like
Yes,
that means like surprising him.
surprising. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, got it.
Does that make sense? So the alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously, startling him, surprising him, kind of scared a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Pachu, how will you say? Let's see. One, two, three. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I want you to say the first 5 words. So that's up to the word the. Don't say the word phone. I just want you to say the first 5 words. How will you say them together?
The alarm clock and the phone
Okay, don't say phone though.
and
Just stop at the. Say it again.
the alarm clock and the
Okay, how does the word and the how do they usually sound together in the middle of a phrase?
and the
In the
and the
in the in the in the in the
and
in the. All right. Can you say that again? The alarm clock in the.
the alarm clock and the
Do the words alarm and clock go together all the time?
yes,
If two words go together all the time, which word gets more emphasis? The first one or the second one?
alarm.
The first one, alarm. Okay.
Yes.
So what is the big sound in the word alarm?
Oh, alarm, lam,
I
lam,
think it's alarm. Yeah, it's alarm.
lam.
Okay. So
Yes,
if so let's make that big. Let's make alarm really big.
lam.
And the way that
Yes,
you read it is the alarm clock in the alarm clock in the.
the alarm clock in the alarm clock in
Make that big. The alarm clock in
the alarm clock in the alarm clock in
the alarm clock in the.
the alarm clock in the alarm clock in
Muhammad, can you read that? The alarm clock in the.
The alarm clock and the
Okay. Now, what do you think about that next word, Muhammad? Should that be a big word or a little word? How will you add the word phone to that phrase?
phone. Big
Big. Okay. So that's phone, phone, phone,
phone.
phone. The alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone.
All right. Can you say that, Pachu? The alarm clock and the phone.
the alarm clock in the phone
Okay, phone or phone.
is a phone.
It's a big sound. It's a big word. It's an important word in our sentence. And we want to have our big, small, big, small, big, small rhythm. The alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock in the phone.
What are the next 2 words, Pachu?
is rang simultaneously.
Okay. W- Rang simultaneously. And what do you think would be the important word here? Which word should we pick as our important word?
Is simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Okay, so this is, let's see. How many syllables are in that word?
Simultaneously. Four, four or five.
Six.
Simul,
Let's see. Sai,
simul,
mo, te,
yeah.
ni,
Multen,
us, li.
ni,
That's six.
us. Yes, six.
Six. Wow.
Simultaneously.
Uh,
Yes.
well, so definitely this word will have more than one accented syllable, okay, because it's such a big word. But which one do you think sounds the biggest? Simultaneously.
The 10. 10
Te.
parties higher. Yeah.
Te. Te. I agree with you. I think it's te. Let's see. We'll put that
Yeah.
up here. We'll make that big. All right. Can you say ring simultaneously?
Rang simultaneously.
Okay.
Simultaneously.
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 The alarm clock and the phone rang
Simultaneous.
simultaneously.
The alarm clock, the phone rang simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the alarm clock and
The alarm clock in the
the alarm clock and
phone rang.
the alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock in the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously.
The alarm clock in the phone rang simultaneously.
Well,
Simultaneously.
so you're saying simultaneously, but is it simultaneously or simultaneously? Which one is better?
Simultaneously. Simultaneous.
Say te,
Simultaneously.
say te,
Te is
multe,
te.
multe,
Is a multi. Is a
simultaneously.
multi. Simultaneous.
Simultaneous. So no, so simultaneous.
Simultaneous. Simultaneous.
Simultaneous. Make the tay big though. Simultaneous.
Simultaneous.
Simul
Simultaneous.
simultaneous. Simultaneous.
Simultaneous. Simultaneous.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Simultaneously. Make the tay big.
Simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously.
The alarm clock, the clock and the phone rang simultaneously.
Mohammed, can you say that? The alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously,
Okay. What are the last two words, Mohammed?
startling him.
What do you think is the big sound in that phrase? Startling him.
Startling. The first syllable.
The first,
Startling.
that's right, the first syllable, startling him. And him, that could just become part of the word startling. Startling him. Startling him.
St- Startling him.
Startling him. Startling him.
Startling him.
Can you say simultaneously startling him?
Simultaneously startling him.
Phone ring simultaneously startling him.
Phone rang simultaneously startling him.
And the phone rang simultaneously startling him.
And the phone rang simultaneously startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously startling him.
Okay. Pachu, can you say that?
The alarm clock, the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Okay. That was really good, but for some reason that was a really good simultaneously. But for some reason, I never hear you say and the. I hear you say the alarm clock, the phone, but I want to hear you say and the alarm clock and the phone.
Okay. The alarm clock and the phone
Hmm.
rang simultaneously,
Hmm.
startling him.
Startling him. Can you say Gim?
Startling
Can you say Gim?
game,
Can you say startling him?
startling him,
Hmm. That's how it sounds. Startling him.
startling, startling him,
Simultaneously startling him.
simultaneously startling him,
Not startling him, but startling him. It's one word. Startling him.
startling him,
Hmm.
startling him,
Ring simultaneously startling him.
rang simultaneously, startling him.
Phone rang simultaneously startling him.
Phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Clock and the phone ring simultaneously startling him.
Clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Okay, but be careful. Simultaneously startling him.
Simultaneously startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously startling him.
The alarm clock, the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Okay, but you didn't say the word and. I just heard the alarm clock, the phone. I didn't hear the word and.
The alarm clock and the
But
phone rang
make
simultaneously.
can you just say the alarm clock and the phone?
The alarm clock
Mm.
and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Okay. Pachu, how many phrases do you think we could divide this sentence into?
And the phone rang. So we divide the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously. Is it two?
Okay, so like this, like the alarm clock and the phone rang and then simultaneously separately? Like that?
No, simultaneously we can take.
So just one phrase, the alarm clock and the phone ring simultaneously like that?
Yes, yes.
So
And
that's one big phrase then? Is that how you want to do it?
so divide this
Where should I divide it?
rang.
Okay, so the alarm clock and the phone and then rang simultaneously like that?
Yes.
Okay. And then so
Yeah, that
go ahead.
yes. Yes. The alarm clock and the phone is first, and the rang simultaneously is second, and then the third is startling him.
Okay. All right. So in the first phrase, the alarm clock and the phone, uh where should we put most of the emphasis?
It's the phone.
Okay. And how do you want this to sound? Friendly and happy or serious?
The friendly.
Friendly? Okay. So phone is the end of our phrase, and we want to give it a high tone to make it sound friendly, but we do have to make it go down because it's the end of the phrase. So we'll try to go from high to low in the same word. Phone,
Yes.
phone,
It's a phone. Phone.
phone, phone. You hear the two tones?
Phone.
Yeah, that's good.
Phone.
That was good.
Phone.
Phone. Just think how you would like to say it in
Phone.
your own language and do the opposite, because you want to say phone, but don't do the opposite.
Yes.
Phone,
Yes. It's, it's a phone. It's a
phone.
phone.
Hmm. Okay. How should we start the phrase?
It's a high tone.
Hi.
It's a L.
Okay. So the alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone.
Phone.
Phone. Phone.
Phone. The alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone. It's phone.
Phone.
It's a phone.
Hmm.
Phone.
The alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone.
Okay, that was good. Mohammed, can you say that? The alarm clock and the phone.
The alarm clock and the phone.
Okay. Now, Mohammed, in the next phrase, rang simultaneously, what do you suppose is the most important word in that phrase?
Simultaneously.
Okay, simultaneously. That first syllable is pronounced sigh. A-E, sigh. Simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Can you say sa?
Sa,
Can you say e?
e,
Sai.
sai,
Simultaneously.
simultaneously.
Okay, simultaneously. Okay. Now, do you want this phrase to sound happy or serious?
Heavy.
Happy? Okay. So, does a happy word sound high or low? High or low?
High.
High. Okay. So we'll give this a high tone. But this is the end of our phrase, so we want to finish in a low way. So the way that we should pronounce this is simultaneously, taneously,
Simultaneously.
taneously,
Simultaneously.
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 Not si, but sigh, sigh, two sounds.
Simultaneously.
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 Okay. How should we start our phrase? Should it be high or low?
High.
High, because most phrases will start high. So, rang simultaneously.
Ran simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously.
Pachu, can you say rang simultaneously?
Rang simultaneously.
Taneously. Go from high to low. Rang simultaneously.
Rang simultaneously.
Okay, that was
Taneously.
pretty high, so I could hear that really high that time. Taneously.
Taneously.
Rang simultaneously.
Taneously. Rang simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously.
All right. Now, Pachu, the final phrase, startling him. What is the most important word in that phrase?
Startling.
Okay.
Startling.
All right. And how should this sound, do you think? Would you like this to sound serious or friendly and nice?
As a friendly.
Friendly? Okay. So how should that big syllable star sound? Should it sound like star or star? Which one?
As a high tone.
Okay, so how does that sound? Tell me how it sounds.
Star.
Star,
Star.
star, star. Okay. But but we want to finish because it's the end of a phrase, we want to finish low. So how would you say
Yeah.
tling him?
Startling him.
Start
Startling him.
startling him. Startling him.
S- Startling him.
But start high.
Startling him.
Startling him. Startling him.
Startling him.
Okay.
Startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Mohammed, can you say the whole phrase?
The alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously, startling him.
Okay. Simultaneously or simultaneously? Which one is better?
Sim- Simultaneously.
Try to say it again.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
The alarm clock or the alarm clock? Which one is better?
The
The. Can you say the phrase again?
the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
The alarm clock or the alarm clock?
The
Well, what letter, what sound does alarm start with?
uh,
Uh,
alarm.
uh, right? What happens to the word the if the next word starts with a vowel sound? Like
The alarm.
uh,
The alarm.
when the is in front of a word that starts with a vowel sound, it becomes
Okay.
the alarm clock. The alarm clock.
The alarm. The alarm clock.
Hmm.
The alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously, startling him.
Okay, good. That was good. All right. Pachu, can you make a how he react question in the past? So if we have he reacted, that's our sentence. He reacted. How would you make a how he react question? Like how he react when alarm clock and phone. It's a very complicated question. Can you make it?
So, so how did she react
She?
when the
Wait. She or he?
he
He.
did he
Okay. I
yeah
thought
did he
say she.
okay sorry. So how did he how did he react
Mm-hmm.
when the alarm clock and the phone rang?
Okay, that was good. Now, in that question, how did he react? What is the most important word?
How
How? So how does that sound when you say it? If it's important, how should it sound?
so how
How?
is
And what about did and he? How do those sound?
is a small.
Okay, so how will those three words sound together? Tell me all those three words together.
So how did he?
How?
So how did he?
How did he? How did he?
How did he? How did he?
How did he? How did
How did
Mhm. How did he react when the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously?
how did he react when the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously?
Okay. Mohammed, can you make that question? How he react?
How did he react when the alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously?
Okay, can you make the question again, but then remember that when you say the word the, it should not be za, but the. Can you try that again?
Uh, how did he react when the alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously?
Okay, how did he react? And then remember how is big because it's a very important thing. It's your question word. And then did he becomes did he. How did he? How did he? How did he? How did he react?
How did he? How did he react
Mm-hmm.
when the alarm and the clock when the alarm clock and the phone ran simultaneously.
Okay. And what is the answer? If I say, Muhammad, how did he react when the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously? How would you answer that question?
Uh, it startled him.
Okay, it startled him. That's right. Pachu, can you make that question one more time? How did he react?
Um, How did he react when the alarm clock and the phone rang
Sim-
simultaneous,
simultaneously. Hmm.
simultaneously?
Okay. How did he react when the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously? What is the answer?
The alarm, the alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Oh, is it simultaneously or simultaneously? Yeah,
Simultaneously,
like that. Say it
simultaneously.
again.
The alarm clock and the phone rang simultaneously, startling him.
Okay, that was good. All right. Well, I think that we'll finish here for today. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Tomorrow, I don't think I'll be making any videos. So we'll start again on Friday. I'll try to schedule those videos in advance so you know far in advance when I'm going to do it. Okay. But not, I don't think I'll be making any videos tomorrow. Okay.
Yes, okay,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for participating. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Thank you for watching. And I will see you next time. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.